Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the big rivalry between Sydney versus Melbourne, so let's get to it. So let's start off with population. Sydney has a larger population than Melbourne, however Melbourne is projected to overtake Sydney's population in 2026, so I guess we can pretty much call this one a tie as both have similar sized populations. However, it's important to note that Sydney has a much bigger population density compared to Melbourne, making it feel a little bit more overcrowded. Experts reckon it's due to the fact that migration and study in Melbourne have gone in the international students' favour. Also, cheaper housing is another reason deterring people from living in Sydney.
The cost of living is a huge factor when it comes to where to live in Australia. Even though I adore Sydney, I could not think of relocating back to Sydney due to the expensive cost of living.
Life in Australia's quintessential city doesn't come cheap. Renting a one-bedroom house in Sydney costs about $2,500 in the CBD, while its counterpart in Melbourne is only $1,600. So that's a massive difference, about $1,000. So if you're planning on living in the inner city, definitely keep that in mind because you'll need to have a much bigger budget if planning to live in Sydney. The prices vary when you're buying a house or an apartment in both cities, but in Sydney you're expecting to pay almost double. We recently made Melbourne's cost of living breakdown video. You can check it out from the description section or just click in the card in the right hand corner.
In terms of finding work, I can only speak for myself and I'm not sure of any corporate positions, but in terms of the service industry, I felt like the competition for getting a job is much higher in Sydney as there are a lot more long-term travelers like people with a working holiday visa or international students.
There are more cafes and a big food scene here in Melbourne, which may provide more opportunities to foreigners, while there are more jobs or startups in IT in Sydney. There are more jobs in the healthcare industries in Melbourne.
Plus, there are endless cafes and restaurants in Melbourne, so the chance of securing a job in hospitality industry is higher. My first job in Australia was as a kitchen hand. Personally, it took me 30 days to find a job in Melbourne compared to 4 months in Sydney.
One-way tickets in Melbourne and Sydney are a dead tie at $4.50. However, monthly tickets are cheaper in Melbourne, with a ticket costing $156 in Melbourne and $217 in Sydney. So that's quite a big saving. Sydney has awesome double-decker trains with seats that are switchable, whereas Melbourne has its famous large network of trams. The trams are also completely free in the free tram zone in the CBD, making it quick and easy to navigate the CBD. Although Sydney has its own unique transport with its fleet of ferries, which makes for a fun way to catch a ride across the city while enjoying the beautiful harbour views. When it comes to weather, I would have to say that Sydney wins this one hands down. Melbourne is infamous for its 4 seasons in one day, as well as having very long winters. We're in one right now, it is freezing outside. Sydney, on the other hand, has nice warm weather for most of the year, and its winters are not as cold as Melbourne. If you hate rain though, then Melbourne may be a better choice, as Melbourne surprisingly has about half the rainfall of Sydney, so it definitely gets more wet up in Sydney. Despite varying temperatures and public perception that Melbourne is worse for the weather, Sydney is the city that receives more rainfall, with a total of 1,223 millimetres on average, while Melbourne receives less than half of that at 603 millimetres. So sports is pretty popular here in Australia. Rugby reigns supreme in Sydney, while Melbourne's AFL is practically a religion down here. Australians love their sport, so both cities have something to offer if you're someone who's into sports and exercise in general. Both cities also have many options for sporting activities, whether you're into netball, soccer, tennis, or any other sport. You'll definitely have a great time down here in Australia. Keep in mind though, when it gets really cold in Melbourne, it can be really hard to enjoy exercise or sports outside. I've been meaning to go on a run this week and it's been too cold to go. Well, that's my excuse anyway, so definitely keep that in mind. It can be very tough in Melbourne. Both cities have splendid art and entertainment scenes. Sydney is the place to be for those who enjoy concerts, the ballet and the opera, because this is the city boasting Australia's most iconic building, which everybody knows and loves, the Opera House. But culturally speaking, Sydney is best suited for outdoor activity lovers as it offers incredible beaches such as Manly and Bondi, which are both really close to the city. It's common to see Sydney-siders going swimming, surfing, and even sailing on the weekend.
Melbourne people take art very seriously. I mean, very seriously. In fact, just walking the city streets demonstrates Melbournians' love of art, as you see the colours pop out from the many murals and graffiti covered walls all over the city. If you're more of a gallery kind of person, we highly recommend visiting the Arts Centre, NGV or Acme.
If you love music, then Melbourne is definitely where you want to be, as it holds the title of being the live music capital of the world, with one live music venue for every 9,500 residents, which is the most on a per capita basis in the entire world. Because of this, Melbourne is home to many famous Australian artists, and you get to enjoy them at many different local gigs at a very reasonable price in many of Melbourne's bars.
Food. Before moving to Melbourne from Sydney, one thing that convinced me was people talking about how much better the food here in Melbourne. Melbourne specializes in an array of multicultural cuisines. It's great for us because sometimes we miss the food from overseas and we can easily find a restaurant that has authentic dishes. Melbourne is also known for its coffee culture. I never believed coffee could taste so different here in Melbourne, but one thing to note is the sheer number of cafes can make it difficult to choose your favorite.
But as the Melbourne coffee experts we're always here to help you find a good one if you need our help. These days we see lots of places with insane looking desserts popping up all around Melbourne, so if you've got a sweet tooth, Melbourne is the right place for you to stick around. If you're a wine drinker, Melbourne might be a better place to live, as Melbourne Food and Wine Festival is the largest of its kind in the world. The festival hosts more than 200 events and attracts around 300,000 people each year. Although Melbourne is the clear winner when it comes to this foodie scene, we're pleasantly surprised how much Sydney has leveled up in the last few years. There's heaps of really cool restaurants and cafes on George Street, the CBD, Manly and Bondi Beach.
Sydney Fish Market is somewhere you should not miss if you're in Sydney. The seafood in this market is incredibly fresh and inexpensive. I find that there is nothing better than eating oysters in the outdoor seating area on a sunny day.
So how about if you're not looking to live in these cities, but if you just want to travel, if you're having a holiday? Well, both cities are definitely worth a visit. Which city works best for you is really dependent on your lifestyle and personality. For nature lovers, Sydney might be a better choice to travel to, as the city is surrounded by marvelous beaches, beautiful views with the Darling Harbour and the rocks. There is something really romantic about the city.
As someone who lives in Australia, I feel like I'm on a holiday overseas whenever I'm up there. But I'm a foodie and I don't own a car, so living in Melbourne makes more sense.
Melbourne is such a walkable city, whereas the streets in the CBD of Sydney can be quite steep, a bit of a maze. There's trams running around Melbourne, which makes travelling around Melbourne a lot easier. But Sydney does have its ferries, which is an experience in itself to enjoy. Overall, I think both cities bring something special to the table, and if you follow our guides, I'm certain you're going to have a really fantastic time while on your visit around Australia. Our verdict, sorry Sydney, Melbourne just has that extra special vibe which makes it a more enjoyable and unique experience. It kind of feels a bit like you're in Europe. Let us know in the comments down below which city you think is a better place to visit or to live, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!